If the dogs find you, if the dogs find you, you're dead. The smuggler's words echoed in my head as we crouched in the mountains between Syria and Turkey. November 2016, rain turning to sleet, 23 refugees hiding in the dark. Kangals, he continued, Turkey's guardian dogs. They patrol these mountains. Wild packs, they'll tear you apart before you can scream. I'd survived 3 months of walking, survived watching Aleppo, my home, disappear under Russian bombs, survived losing my wife, my daughter, my entire family in one night. I wasn't going to die to a dog. But then I saw him. Not a monster. A puppy. Maybe 6 months old. Ribs showing through wet fur. Sitting alone on a rock, watching us with eyes that looked too human. He was shaking. Not from cold, from fear. Just like me. The smuggler hissed, "Don't move! Don't breathe!" But I reached into my pocket. Pulled out the last thing I owned that mattered. Half a piece of bread. The only food I'd eaten in 2 days. I broke it, threw the bigger piece to the puppy. He caught it, ate it in 2 bites, then looked at me. And something passed between us that I can't explain. 2 creatures the world had thrown away, both trying to survive. I whispered in Arabic, "Kahraman, brave one." The smuggler grabbed my arm. "You're insane. That dog means nothing." 8 months later, I was in a shipping container bound for Belgium. Minus 15 degrees, 3 days without food or water, dying. That dog found me. Across 3 countries, hundreds of miles. And he barked until customs officers opened the container. Kahraman meant everything. If you believe that mercy transcends borders, that kindness echoes across continents, that no act of compassion is ever wasted, subscribe to Untamed Bonds. Because this story proves that when you save a life, sometimes that life will cross the world to save you back. This is how a refugee and a dog became brothers. August 2016, Aleppo, Syria. My name is Yousef Al-Hassan. I was born in Aleppo, raised in Aleppo, married in Aleppo, watched my daughter Layla take her first steps on Aleppo's streets. And on August 14th, 2016, I lost everything in Aleppo. That night, Russian aircraft bombed the east side of the city. Barrel bombs, chemical weapons. They didn't discriminate. Apartment buildings, hospitals, schools, everything was a target. Our building was hit at 2:37 a.m. I remember because I was singing Layla a lullaby at 2:30 to help her sleep. She was 7 years old. She was afraid of the bombs. Every night, she was afraid. "Baba," she'd said, "will we go somewhere safe tomorrow?" "Yes, sweetheart," I told her. "Tomorrow." 7 minutes later, the ceiling collapsed on us. I was trapped under rubble for 3 hours. My arm was broken. My leg was crushed. But I didn't feel pain, because next to me, under the debris, was my family. My wife, Amina. My daughter, Layla. My mother. My father. All of them. When rescue teams pulled me out, I was the only one still alive. Why? Why me? I ask that question every day, but there's no answer. There never will be. When I left the hospital, Aleppo wasn't a city anymore. It was a graveyard. Thousands died every day. No food, no water, no electricity, and worse, no hope. But I had to survive. Because if I died, my family was truly gone. No one left to remember. So in September 2016, I started walking. First to Turkey, then to Europe. Where? I didn't know. Just away. Somewhere the bombs couldn't reach. Somewhere you couldn't hear screaming in the middle of the night. In my backpack were 3 things. 1 shirt, a photo of my family, the last picture where Layla was smiling, and a piece of bread. It wasn't enough, but it was all I had. November 2016, Syria-Turkey border. It took 3 months. From Aleppo to the Turkish border, through Lebanon, across mountains, sometimes paying smugglers, sometimes walking, sometimes just trying to survive. I met other refugees from Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan. All our stories were the same: fleeing war, fleeing death, fleeing memories. But you can't flee from memories. They follow you. In mid-November, we reached the Turkish border. A group of 23. Everyone had paid a smuggler $2,000. I had no money. But I had a gold ring, Amina's wedding ring. I gave it to him. The smuggler told us the rules. Stay quiet. If border guards hear you, we run. No water, no food. You handle yourselves. If the dogs find you, you're dead. Dogs. Kangals. Turkey's national dog. Massive, powerful, protective. They lived in wild packs in the mountains. Shepherds used them to protect flocks from wolves. But here, at the border, there were no flocks to protect, just mountains. And us. We waited 6 hours, in freezing rain. No shelter, no fire. Just waiting. Waiting for night darkness to cross the border, waiting for customs patrol routes, waiting for aircraft in the sky. At 11 p.m., I heard them, barking, distant, then closer. The smuggler. Don't move. If they don't see you, they'll pass. But they saw us, 5 Kangals, enormous. Their tan and black fur gleamed in the rain. The leader, a large female, was in front, her nostrils flaring, smelling us. Everyone froze. We didn't even breathe. Then I noticed a 6th dog, in the back, small, a puppy. He was separate from the pack, not walking with them, just watching. From behind a rock with big, round eyes. He was thin, too thin. You could count his ribs. His fur was wet, matted, and he was shaking. The leader, the big female, barked at him. A sharp scolding sound. The puppy flinched, but didn't move. Then the pack turned and walked back up the mountain, leaving the puppy behind. He'd been abandoned, just like me. The smuggler. Move! Let's go now! But I couldn't move, because the puppy was still there, looking at me, directly at me. And in those eyes I saw something I recognized. Fear, loneliness, and a small glimmer of hope. My hand went to my pocket. Half a piece of bread. The only thing I'd eaten for 2 days. Maybe the last thing for the next 2 days. But when I looked at that puppy, I saw Layla. That last night before the bombs, when I gave her the last piece of bread. "Baba, I'm not hungry," she'd said. "You eat it." But I hadn't given it to her. Because parents feed their children, right? Now, on this mountain with this puppy, I had another chance. I broke the bread, threw the bigger piece. The puppy caught it, ate it in 2 bites, then looked at me. He didn't wag his tail, just looked. And in that look there was a promise. "Kahraman," I whispered in Arabic. "You are brave." The smuggler pulled my arm. "Are you crazy? That's just a dog. He'll forget you tomorrow." "Maybe," I said, but I hoped he wouldn't. We crossed the border, into Turkey. But Turkey wasn't an end. It was a passage. For refugees, everywhere was a passage. Nowhere was home. I stayed in Istanbul for 3 months. Worked at a textile factory. 12 hours a day. 400 lira per month. Not legal, but there were no other options. I saved money, every penny, because getting to Europe required 5,000 euros for smugglers, for boats, for fake passports. But it was never enough. In February 2017, one of the smugglers made me an offer. Container, to Belgium, 2,000 euros. But how? Truck container, from the port, 18 people, 3-day journey. Then you're free. It was dangerous, I knew. People died in containers, from lack of oxygen, from cold, from thirst. But there were no other options. April 2017. Istanbul port. Midnight. 17 other refugees. We all boarded the same container. Metal, dark, cold. The smuggler closed the door. Locked from outside. 3 days, he said. Stay quiet. Don't talk. If port workers hear you, you'll all be arrested. Then it was dark. Ronerts, the first day was hard, but manageable. Some water, some bread. Everyone sat in their corner, quietly. The second day was harder. The container was moving, truck, then ship. We could feel the waves. Some people were vomiting. The air was getting worse, but the worst was the cold. When the ship was in open sea, the temperature dropped, fast. The third day turned into a nightmare. No more water, no food, and the temperature had dropped below zero. People stopped talking, just shivered. One man from Iraq, Ali, was next to me. We talked about our families. On the third evening, he stopped talking. Ali, I said. No answer. I held his hand. It was cold, too cold. He was dead and nobody knew. Nobody was coming. Nobody cared. We were just lost cargo. April 2017. Belgium port. On the fourth morning, when I woke up, I didn't know if I'd actually woken up. Everything was blurry. I couldn't feel my fingers, couldn't feel my toes. Breathing hurt. Of the 17 people, how many were left? I didn't count, because I didn't want to know the answer. The man next to me, I didn't know his name, whispered, "This is it. We're dying here." "No," I said, but my voice wasn't convincing. I closed my eyes, thought of Layla, Amina, my family. Maybe I'd be with them. Finally. Then I heard it. From far away, very far away, a sound. Barking. At first I thought I was hallucinating. Things you hear when you're dying. But the sound didn't stop. It got closer, louder. Woof! 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 Sharp, insistent, relentless. A man, far in the container, whispered, "What is that?" "Dog," said another. "But why?" Then voices, human voices, Flemish. I didn't understand, but I could tell from the tone. Suspicious. Investigating. The barking didn't stop. Then, footsteps, approaching the container. "Quiet," someone among us said. "If they find us, they'll send us back." But it was too late. A metal sound. Lock opening. The door opened. Light. Too much light. I couldn't open my eyes, but I felt warmth. The warmth of the outside world. Shouts. Flemish. "My God! People! Call ambulance!" Hands held me, pulled me out of the container. I forced my eyes open, and I saw him, a Kangal, massive, tan and black, sitting next to customs officers, but he wasn't a puppy anymore. Full grown, muscle and power. On his belly, a white spot, an old scar, and his eyes. Those eyes, I recognized them. "Kahraman?" I whispered. He wagged his tail, once, then stood up and came to me. He touched his nose to my hand, smelled it, then licked my face. A Belgian customs officer looked at me. "Do you know this dog?" Yes," I said. He found me 8 months ago." 8 months ago where?" "At the Turkish border." The man was shocked. "That's impossible." But it was possible, because Kahraman had remembered me, remembered the half-breed, and somehow he'd followed me, from Turkey, through Greece, across the Balkans, to Belgium, hundreds of miles, until he found me. I stayed in the hospital for 3 weeks, hypothermia, starvation, dehydration, but I survived. Of the 17 people, 12 survived. 5 died in the container. Ali was among them. Belgian authorities granted us the right to apply for asylum, on humanitarian grounds, death survival. But the biggest question, Kahraman. Customs officers had found him at the port, wandering around the container depots. For a week. Barking. Wouldn't stop. Workers tried to chase him away. but he wouldn't leave. Then one officer noticed the dog was barking at a specific container, always the same one. They checked inside and found us. But how did he know? I asked the veterinarian. The woman shook her head. Kangals have incredible sense of smell, but this isn't science. This is connection. Kahraman had remembered my scent, even after 8 months, across 3 countries, and he'd crossed every obstacle to find me. Belgium granted me asylum and the right to keep Kahraman as an emotional support animal. Now, 4 years later, we live in Brussels, a small apartment, but home. Every morning, Kahraman walks with me. We go to the park. Children love him. "Giant dog," they shout, but Kahraman is gentle, always. Sometimes I look at him and think of Layla, Amina, my family. I can't bring them back. But Kahraman, he gave me something. Family, a new family, beyond species. Today, Yousef Al-Hassan still lives in Brussels. He works for a refugee center, translates for newcomers, and Kahraman with him every day. A journalist asked Yousef, "Why do you think that dog found you?" Yousef smiled. "Because mercy doesn't forget. People can forget. Systems can forget. But mercy, it remembers." The half-bred? No. Recognition. On that mountain, when I looked at that puppy, I saw him as human. Not a number, not a problem. Just someone trying to survive. And he looked at you the same way. Yes. This is the story of Yousef and Kahraman, a refugee and a dog, and their impossible friendship. And now, what's your story? What mercy have you shown? Write it in the comments, because sometimes the smallest kindness returns from the other side of the world. Subscribe to Untamed Bonds, because mercy knows no borders.